Midway USA brand product designers have one straightforward goal: develop high-quality, technically sound products and deliver them to customers at reasonable prices. If you are immersed in the shooting sports industry and pay close attention to every single detail, you know our products are built right and stand up to everyday use. Who has shooting mats and range bag systems to hunting clothing and just about everything for the outdoors? Log on and shop 24/7 with super fast shipping. MidwayUSA.com. For almost 50 years, Midway USA has been America's go-to source for just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Go to MidwayUSA.com to see our latest deals and promotions and take advantage of our super fast same-day shipping. If you need a cooler, a new fishing rod, another rifle, ammo, or a reloading press, you can find it all at MidwayUSA.com. Thanks for your business.
This episode is brought to you by Vortex Optics and Ignite Marketing Group. Check the links in the show notes.
So I'm looking down another lane to see if there's any, deer action, and this thing cuts in front of us, and I kind of see the last bit of it, and it's very dark. And I was like, "Whoa, what was that?" And she's like, "You're not going to believe me, but it almost looked like a black horse." And she's like, I think it was a deer, but it was darker than any I've ever seen. I was like, "I think you just saw a melanistic deer." And so we start talking about it. Of course, go through all of our game trail cameras, and we don't see a single image of anything. And so we're like, "What's going on?" Yeah, totally. And then we got like some donkeys that are nearby that are loose. We've had like a bunch of zonkies, half, zebra, half donkey. So we're like, who knows what this could be, man? Our neighbor's got some weird
fast,
stuff.
long-legged pig, man. That's what it is.
It was huge, man. The biggest ever.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and today we're thrilled to have George Blitch, a fifth-generation Texan, passionate outdoorsman, join us. So George shares some captivating tales from his life on the ranch, his adventures in wildlife management, and the thrill of hunting a rare melanistic deer. Super cool story. So get ready for an episode filled with fascinating stories, insights into conservation, and of course, the joy of storytelling. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let's go ahead, let George tell you some of his stories. Thank you. All right, George. Welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast, brother. How are you?
Doing fantastic, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here, man. You were so quick to reply. I had a friend say, you got to get this son of a Blitch on. And, you immediately messaged me and said, let's jump on a call. And here we are. And I'm excited to hear your stories today, sir.
Cheers, man. I mean, hunting outdoors, fun telling stories, man. I love it. This is right up my alley, man.
Perfect. Well, let's do this. Let's take a small step back. Why don't you introduce yourself so the folks know who they're hearing some stories from today?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is George Blitch. I am a fifth-generation Texan. I've been living here all my life. My family helped to settle kind of some of the areas in Southwest Texas over 100 years ago, and that is an area that I kind of grew up hunting and just kind of for all sorts of animals, arrowheads as well behind me, and just absolutely fell in love with being out in the ranch and that kind of atmosphere. Eventually that kind of, evolved into wildlife management. And so I started to do a lot of work on that property and really taking care of the land and kind of being the best steward of the land that I could. Always was taught, we're not just shooting to kill. It's about, protecting the environment so that future generations could love this way of life. And so I kind of had that stewardship and conservation kind of instilled in me at a young age before I even knew what those titles meant, right? And then eventually I ended up having a ranch fall under my name. My wife and I took it over in 2010. And so that has been a few hundred acres, Central Texas, that I own, operate, manage, guide on, and help a lot of kind of mentoring new hunters and such in there. But this has always been something that has been from when I was a little kid, just like drawing, whenever I'd get bored, I'd draw maps of the ranches. And then I ended up having a mapping company in the future, which is kind of just seamless. Love to be out there. And so I've just been, lifelong hunter, 46 years old, started when I was like 6, I think I had my first big game at like 10 years old at the deer and just haven't looked back, man. So that's kind of, a little bit of intro. And, obviously I started to travel around the world and meet all these other people and kind of interview them and hear about their outdoor lifestyle. And that's kind of expanded. And you will talk about that later on as far as the podcast stuff. But it's just been, I love soaking in the knowledge and the outdoors and doing whatever I can to kind of leave it better than I found it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I mean, your roots are deep in probably the best parts of Texas, right? Central Texas, the hill country. Good Lord, is it beautiful there? And then that Southwest area, man, that is a fun place to hunt. I've gone out aoudad hunting there before and hog hunting, and I love it. I'll go out there anytime. So it's awesome that that's kind of where your roots come from. But man, we're here to hear some stories. So I know you got some interesting ones for us. I'll let you set the stage. Give us some details to where we are and get it started.
Sounds good. Well, one that comes to mind is a melanistic whitetail deer. For those who aren't familiar with melanism, it's basically, the opposite of what you see of albino, right? The lack of pigment. Well, with melanin, there's an excess of pigment. So it's producing a lot of dark brown, black animals. And in the case of whitetail deer, I mean, the ones that are on our property out there in Central Texas, they are almost all black. It's all low fence there, but there is a region of about 7, maybe 8 counties that have more melanistic whitetail deers than the rest of the world combined as far as ungulates.
That's crazy.
So it is just.
I have a question for you in regards to this, and maybe you know it, maybe you don't, but like I know that like albino, the lack of melanin, they typically have really bad eyes. When they have more melanin, do they have like good eyesight, bad eyesight, or do you not really know? And that's totally understandable if you don't, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, from everything that I have talked to wild game biologists about, and I've kind of dove into this a lot of articles I wrote about that. So I'm interviewing a lot of people who are doctorates in that field that study melanism. There's nothing that they've indicated that there is anything other than that recessive gene that makes them any different than any other whitetail. So if there's something in that region that maybe affects the whitetail, then maybe it affects them. But as far as everything that I've been told, eyesight, everything is fine. Structure, everything in there is normal.
Got it. Okay, cool. Just curious. All right, keep going.
So I guess when my wife and I took over the property in about 2010, 2011, we went around and had a wild game biologist come and join us, and we were looking at all these browse species and kind of identifying what's tier 1, tier 2. Texas Parks and Wildlife does the thing here in Texas where they'll have someone help you build your wildlife management plan. And so wild game biologist comes over there. We're looking at all these things. And as we're going through and we're kind of making a map of some of the tier 1 after she leaves, we see what appears to be just a black deer run by at a distance. And I was like, what was that? And I was like, man, maybe it was in the shadows, but it seemed abnormally dark. So that would like cut to, years forward. We see, as we're driving through, my wife sees a deer come across us, and when I'm driving, I'm in the Polaris, right? So I'm looking down another lane to see if there's any, deer action, and this thing cuts in front of us, and I kind of see the last bit of it, and it's very dark. And I was like, whoa, what was that? And she's like, you're not gonna believe me, but it almost looked like a black horse. And she's like, I think it was a deer, but it was darker than any I've ever seen. I was like, I think you just saw a melanistic deer. And so we start talking about it. Of course, go through all of our game trail cameras, and we don't see a single image of anything. And so we're like, what's going on? Yeah, totally. And then we got like some donkeys that are nearby that are loose. We've had like a bunch of zonkies, half, zebra, half donkey. So we're like, who knows what this could be, man? Our neighbor's got some weird
fast,
stuff.
Long-legged pig, man. That's what it is.
It was huge, man. The biggest ever. So we're trying to figure out, if there may be any evidence of it, right? Because that's like the key. So that whole season we go through, not a single, site in any of the stands that we're at, no game trail cameras. Well, eventually we finally find a game trail camera that shows, yes, that's a melanistic deer. It's got a black back. And then the second image is a little bit blurry. You kind of see the body, but you see some antlers. Then it's like the third image is it looks like Sasquatch, right? You can barely see it. It's blurry. But you can tell there's like 8 points in it. And it looks like a 3.5-year-old deer based on, our local, deer herd and what we kind of can assess. So then we're going through, I go through 250,000, 500,000 images every year, kind of doing our census counts and stuff. And again, not a single one after that. Eventually one year, my buddy's in a hunting stand and he's like, hey, he texts me at the end of the night, George, you won't believe it. I saw it. And I knew immediately he was talking about the black deer. At that point, we had called it Black Beauty, and it was kind of an enigma, right? Everyone had talked about it, but no one had seen it in person. He's like, I saw it. And I was like, well, what did it look like? He's like, it was mature. It was a 10-point. The thing's amazing. I was like, did you get any pictures? He's like, no, I didn't take the camera. Normally at the ranch, I leave a camera there for anybody to take up. It's really great zoom, little one-piece body thing, but it kind of reaches out there. And he's like, if it's okay, I'll stay here another night. He's got some work to do, and I'll go back there and I can see if I can get a picture of it. I was like, dude, that'd be great. So he goes up there, and the next night he texts me. He's like, dude, I saw it for about 45 minutes. It came out. I took pictures. It got dark, went off, and I waited a little while to make sure I didn't spook it. But it's 2 nights in a row, showed up in the same spot. And he's like, I'll download, the SD card when I get home and send it. I was like, no, take a picture of the back of the camera, send it to me immediately. I want to see this thing. And I'll send you a picture too if you want to throw it in there. But he sends me a picture of the back of the camera. I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is a monster. And he ends up, telling me the time it came out and whatnot. So I'm like just kid in a candy store, right? I go to show my wife. I was like, look at the picture. It's 2 nights in a row. It showed up at the same spot. And she's like, I was like, man, I'd love to go out there and get a chance at it. She's like, well, what time are we leaving in the morning? I was like, oh my, there's times you've married well, and that's just one of those many. So go and packing up all the gear, and then I'm like trying to like pretend I'm going to sleep that night. And so I just wanted to, get out there and get a chance to hunt it. Now, we've been hunting at this ranch, kind of under, our management for about, I guess, 7 years at this point. This is 2016. The day that we're driving out to the ranch is November 11th, which is Veterans Day. This is a property that was my granddad's. He was a World War II vet. He's got all these amazing stories. After he retired, he ended up buying this ranch with my dad and raising Santa Gertrudis cattle, which is from the King Ranch cattle. And so this is an area that he's done a lot of wildlife management stuff over the years, and now I'm kind of taking over, and here's my chance to go and hunt this deer. All the other tags I had before for hunting, I'd give it to my in-laws, my friends, because a lot of times in South Texas, as you may know, a lot bigger of a deer, like 50 pounds heavier. So meat calls, we always go down there. But this deer was one where I was like, I'm going to go after this one. And
yeah, damn right.
Man, by the picture, this thing looked like for that area, it's it's still not the biggest thing, but it was probably about 6.5 years old, 5.5 at the least, and that's what I'm thinking when I'm going out there. And so, anyway, I'm excited to go get this, a chance to hunt at this one. And so I go and I parked about 1,000 yards away. I was like, I got there super early, like 3:30. It's super hot out there, and I'm like, man, it showed up about an hour before sunrise at I think it was like at 100 yards, 150 yards or something like that, 2 days in a row. I'm like, I'm rolling the dice here. So I get out there, I sneak up, get up, and I'm about to get up into the blind, and I look out and I see not one, but 2 black creatures about 200 yards down. I'm like, oh my gosh.
No way.
2. So, I do what any stealth hunter would do. I get up into the deer blind, and I grab my binoculars, and I look out. There's 2 cows. And I'm like, no! They're not supposed to be here. They're going to ruin the hunt. So again, with my, years of experience, I did what any other stealth hunter would do is I put everything back, snuck down, I ran down the field, and I'm waving my hands, and I'm trying to get their attention, and they finally run off, and then I get back, and, I'm like, I got them out of there. Then I realized I probably left my scent. What did I do? I just ruined my chance. I should have just left it alone, second guessing myself. Don't see anything for 2 hours. It's like, just absolutely heartbroken. I've ruined my chances. And then it starts getting dark and you hear things crackling in the woods. And then, of course, every shadow is this huge melanistic buck walking out. And every single mesquite tree is the antlers moving through. And, man, I was just heartbroken. And then all of a sudden I look up and I see the tips of these white antlers coming out. And there he is, right at 33 yards away. Now, I'm rifle hunting.
No, 33 yards from your blind? That's
yes,
amazing.
I was like, do I throw my rifle at it? Do I shoot it? It was so close, man. And I, of course, again, in my wisdom, I ended up already kind of setting up my rifle, zoomed in, thinking this thing's going to be at 100, 150 yards, right? So I don't know, I'm looking 10 power or something like that. I pull the rifle up and I look through the scope and all I see is black. I can't distinguish anything. And I'm like, is the cap on? I'm freaking out. And I'm like, here I am. And I thought I'd had, 30 years under my belt. No, I'm such an idiot. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I realized then I'm oh, I'm zoomed in way too far. I was at 12 or 14. Zoom back out. Then it's then I see the deer. And right at that point in time, I can hear some other deer kind of, signaling off. Some doe was like huffing, and I'm like, oh no. And he tensed up like he's about to run and took a shot. And then he like ran into the little, there's like 2 lanes, and in the middle of it is a big patch of woods. He ran in there, I reloaded, and then he never came back out. So I gave it that 30, 40 minutes. Okay. Somehow I was able to, and I, of course you can think about all the things that must have gone wrong, and what happened. Did I see it come through, run by, and I'm second guessing everything in my life.
Did I use the right caliber?
Exactly. I'm going back to like my very early days of hunting. Like all of my, assurity and anything that I had as far as confidence was just shot. So I go into the woods, and there it is, man, and it's a 10-point. It ended up being about 136 inch, but for that area in Central Texas is pretty big. Ended up getting a shoulder mount done. The guy ended up, there was a wild game biologist who was there, happened to be there, and so we get to talking. Turns out they think it's 7.5 years old by the age and the teeth and some of the wear and whatnot. And it was just incredible, man. And it ended up being one of the, I think, top 3 or 4 in the country as far as melanistic bucks that have ever been taken, at least been reported, I wrote a couple articles that kind of got, National Deer Association, but back then it was Quality Whitetails. Now it's, have a different magazine, but as far as, when it was QDMA, Quality Deer Management Association, and that kind of opened up the floodgates. I'm telling the story, and then I start hearing from different people who are studying melanistic deer, and through that, I got to meet a lot of these doctorates who were kind of wanting to do studies and learn more, some sending samples out, save some tissue samples and some muscle samples and stuff in the freezer, and trying to figure out some questions, one of which being, do melanistic doe have melanistic fawns? Because none of us have ever seen a melanistic doe with a melanistic fawn. Now, I've seen regular white-tailed deer with one regular deer, like looking deer, and one melanistic deer, which is kind of wild, but never the other. So throughout the years, we've had a lot of experience since 2016 that day. And, that was kind of a cool thing too, is like my very first deer, even though I'd gone to that ranch all my life, I'd always hunted in South Texas, but my first deer on the ranch happened to be Veterans Day. There, that connection with my granddad. Yeah. We'd done all this work leading up to it, man. We had done so much habitat improvement, and it was just kind of a full circle moment to have that experience. And, that was like the trophy for me, was the idea of being able to have that experience, that story, and be, my family ranch, right? And I'm not a trophy hunter. I don't try to kill the biggest thing. Normally it's about wildlife management, right? It's like habitat. Hey, you need to take this many deer to kind of keep a good balance. That's what I'm about. And I just want to have meat, can't eat the antlers, right? But it's like this idea that of taking care of the land. And so, I don't know, it just felt like we rewarded the land, and the land rewarded me back in a sense, and we've taken another melanistic doe since then. My buddy Matthew Mitchell from Mitchell Wilson Architecture, he ended up taking 2 melanistic doe last year. And so we've had 4 on the property, and, the last, 9 years now, going on the 9th season, we've seen tons, had amazing photos, videos. I had an article in Meat Eater last year about it and stuff. And so
that's cool.
It's just fun to talk about, man. I just love these animals, and just the colorations of whitetail can be all sorts of ones, right? Lewistic, albino, there's so many different types that are out there and colorations, and just a neat thing.
It's cool that you have that genetic trait on your ranch, because most people will never see one. I think the closest I've ever been is like a Facebook post. Again, in that same region, I think there was one in downtown San Marcos that no one could hunt. Pretty good buck too. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe he went over to your property. I don't know.
I left a long trail of corn. It's about 100 miles, but he followed it.
Yeah. But here's a crazy idea. So I just had, this episode just came out, Jesse Griffith's on, and I know that you've had him on your podcast. In fact, I could see the books over your shoulders. Next time you have one, he was talking about how one of his life goals is to actually do a shoulder mount of a doe. And he's just not sure what the perfect doe is. He shoots plenty of does, but he's waiting until he just gets that right one. And so next time you have a melanistic doe, maybe you should reach out to Jesse, because I'm sure he would love to harvest that and fulfill that dream of his, because he's super interested in doing the shoulder mount of a doe, which is very unique, right?
Well, I will have to, and I'll send you some pictures too. I'm looking at it right now. I actually have the melanistic doe and the buck here, the shoulder mounts done, because I was like, whenever am I going to get an opportunity and this, it was a mature doe, and it was a few years back, but I was like, I'm getting a shoulder mount done. And people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, no.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
you have to. And that was part of the thing too. I said, if anybody takes them, so there's 2 mature ones last year, you have to do something with them. My buddy Matthew ended up doing a full, he tanned the entire hide. So he has 2 of them that are melanistic that he has up on the wall that are just full tanned hide, which is another really cool thing. But Jesse's been out to the ranch, and I'm friends with him, big fan of all the things he's got going on. And I did not know that he wanted to do that. So now I'm going to have to thread that needle together, man. So I'll be scouting extra hard there this weekend.
There you do. If you get one, invite me. I'll just come sit in the blind with you guys. That'd be fun as hell to be down there with you boys trying to get that doe.
Oh, that would be fun, man. That would be fun. We'd have a hoot. Love to have you out there.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Well, okay. Let's keep going. What other stories you got for us? But that's super cool. Man, that's especially that it's so common for you, right? That you keep having these deer and the genetic traits keep showing up because some people just never see it in their entire life. So that's awesome.
I mean,
but
they're like 1 in a million, right? So whatever the number is, 1 in 2 million. I forget what it is, but it's super rare. And we usually have 3, 4, 5 on the property, and you won't see them like every single time, but every now and then a game trail will pick them up and stuff. And that other one we had seen on the camera, but no one ever saw it in person until that, on November 9th and 10th and then 11th, those 3 days back in 2016. But yeah, it's just a really cool thing to see. And then some of them too, and I'll send you some photos as well. Some of them will have melanistic traits, but not the whole thing. So like the face and the head will be all black. And then you'll have like this tan, light brown body. Okay. Or like we have one that has a stripe from its nose all the way to its tail that's just straight jet black. Like just
that is so
wild,
cool,
man. I mean, such a cool thing. A lot of photos, a lot of videos, a lot of fun, just kind of watching them grow, because we see them from a fawn. And we have a certain management principle. We're not shooting them until X many ages. So it's not, we're not just like shooting to shoot to get something mounted. It's like that has to be a mature deer. And so, anyway, that while we're kind of doing all that, we're always scouting around the property to see what's going on. One thing that we found is a huge turkey population. We've got some piebald turkeys out there too. And so we're always taking pictures of these unique animals, right? But we've had a huge influx of turkey. We've done so many great things for the habitat. And they say, if it's good for the bird, it's good for the herd, right? Or vice versa. The things we've done for the deer have it helped the turkey population, having like really nice high grasses that they can kind of, go ahead and nest in and whatnot. Be safe from predators, predator management. So with turkeys, that has been something that I've always been an opportunistic turkey hunter. Literally killed probably 15 in my life or something like that. But most of the times walking around the ranch and having some turkey shells with me on the shotgun, just in case it's turkey season, see one and run it down, or, just it had never been like calling them. And then my buddy and I were like, we're going to practice calling. So we buy, some mouth calls, and we basically scared all of our neighbors away practicing, It's like we were so terrible, but we kind of got a little better each time. Got some good pot calls over from Phelps Game Calls there, from the Meat Eater family of companies there, Jason Phelps, and got some of those and tested them out and kind of got real good on some slate calls, and finally got to the point where we called them in, and man, we could hear one of them drumming, and it was just so close. You feel that, that almost like a bass, like if you're at a concert that's like, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is more exciting than any other hunt I had been on. And of course, go to grab the shotgun and pull, and you hear that click, bad primer in the shotgun shell. So that bird runs off. I'd finally called in my first bird, and failed, and then I had another failed attempt, and it's just like the pieces wouldn't come together. And got this opportunity the following year where I called one in, and then that was a real fun. So I got to finally check that box. And then I realized too that the next thing that I was going to try to do was kind of see if I could hear one and maybe close the distance and do some calling and kind of be a little bit more aggressive in trying to get towards this. Well, this bird was hung up at about 600 yards away. I could hear it. Every time I'd call, it would call right back, but it didn't want to cross a fence line. And so, man, I tried to, cut that distance, and I would call, and I'd kind of, half walk run and call from another location. And eventually, after about 35 minutes, man, I lost sight of it. I could see it by the fence. And then I called one more time. I heard it, and I was like, that sounds closer. And then it came across the fence, and I ended up taking that turkey. And that was probably like the pinnacle of being able to call, locate, move, bring it across an area that a lot of times it won't cross creek beds or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
There's always something that hangs them up. You're like, it's a fence.
Every
He's
damn
live.
time.
Get over there, bro. But it was something that, like, I don't know, man, it helped me to feel like I had accomplished something in the woods, not just sitting in a stand or waiting for, that perfect time or carrying around a shotgun and having an opportunistic. It got me so pumped. And so while I still love all other types of hunting, man, when that deer season ends and I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to get out there in the turkey woods and challenge myself. And, man, it's fun hunting turkeys. For those who don't, it's once you do it, I think you'll be hooked. It's something else, man. I love it. I mean, do you do your own turkey hunting?
Yeah. I've harvested, I want to say 3 birds so far. So I don't know if I told you this, but I've only been hunting for about a decade. Like, just picked it up myself. So I'm just learning. And so I've gone out there. I killed one Miriam. This guy right here, right behind me. Yeah. That was my first bird in western Colorado. We were hunting as hard as I've ever hunted for elk. Like, we were doing 10 miles a day, waking up super early, hiking. It was just a brutal hunt, but awesome. And then I got 2 turkeys that I've shot in Texas. And man, it's just so fun, especially because, like, you make a stupid noise and they make a stupid noise back. And you're like, all right, it's on. And somehow you can't, like, you're like, what a stupid animal. It's telling me where it is. And then by the end of it, you're like, maybe I'm the stupid person because I can't close the deal here. Like, they're giving me all the information I need. It's just so fun. And it's such especially when you get a bunch of them, like before daylight, and there's just gobbles going off everywhere. Oh my gosh, it is a blast.
Oh, it is, man. There's nothing like, and I've done this accidentally. My buddy Colin Williams and he works with Matt My Ranch with me, and we went out hunting. We were trying to get him a bird, and we're like, we're going to go underneath these trees over here. And it was near where they had been, taken up and roosting at night. And we didn't realize, man, but they had moved trees. So we like walked underneath. I step on like a little twig, and all of a sudden it's like, there's like 14 of them or something right above us. And that'll wake you up in the morning, man. That adrenaline got me going. I'm like, okay, kind of back out of here. And it was like, we kind of now, we'll go out there and we've kind of learned to do some alcohols, do some things, figure out where they are so that we don't spook them. They stayed in the tree and they came down, but they were a little wary of that. So they weren't able to close the distance that time. But man, it was, it's just so much fun, being out in the woods and hearing them gobble and just, it's the kings of spring, man. They are tough to hunt for a reason, but, it's one of my more favorable hunts. And of course, we do a lot of hog hunting. We have, you probably talked to Jesse about this too. There are in Texas so many wild hogs, and I know some people are like, oh, they're producing every 6 months and 12 per litter. Yeah, the numbers aren't that extreme, but let's take that number in half. And if it's like they're having 6 per litter, you can do the exponential math, and you have a problem that is out of control. But they are one of the most tasty invasive species and that you can imagine. I mean,
they're domestic pigs, right? They're domestic pigs. Somewhere got loose. What's crazy, and you can tell me if this is true or not. I've just heard it through, the grapevine, but like within, 6 months of a domestic pig getting loose, they grow their tusks and get hairier and just become these wild beasts. Like, something about being free just makes them just a little bit more savage. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like us in the winter. We grow our beards out, right? It's the wild is upon us.
My beard's year-round. I'm not in Texas. I can keep it year-round.
I try. It's because I'm bald, so I got to do something. Otherwise, it just looks off. I shaved it all once. My wife's like, don't do that again.
But I've done the same mistake.
They were released, I think it was originally back, I want to say, in the early 1900s, right? And they will outcompete your local native species, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, there's people that are out there, eradicating them and shooting them and just maybe even leaving them or whatever. And it's like, well, there's a really complex issue going on, is that they will go and take over a lot of the food and forage that your native species will. So you're basically, they're a competitor in that sense, but there's no natural predator of them, right? So there's been all these different, there's recently, I think it was in California, there was, they've been trying to do these type of poison controls. Well, it's like a hunter ended up seeing all this blue organs, blue meat, because and I had heard about this before. There's like these little gummy bears. They were trying to trap them, and then you'd know if they ate this toxic poison because they would turn their internals blue and whatnot. So there's there's been people who've been trying to figure out ways and systems. We do use hog traps and then hunting them, as far as like from rifle and such too. So we there in some years in Central Texas, we trap up to 100. In South Texas, we'd probably get about maybe 20 or so in the trap a year. And then there's some years you won't see any of them. And then all of a sudden, like we had a neighbor do a helicopter hunt that killed like 300 or 400, and the neighbor around us, and they had like one weekend or something, and we didn't see hogs for like a year. But then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, there's 20 of them back on camera in one night. They will find their way. I forgot what the number is, but I think it's all, maybe even one county has them in Texas and so many other states. It's just, you can see kind of a chart every year. It's like the nation just has more and more red spots from where they're going and traveling. But
I've heard rumor they're actually touching Colorado, just the southern border. They don't want to agree that they are there because it's paperwork for the people involved.
Sure.
But yeah, they're getting farther and farther north every year.
Yeah, it's kind of, one of those things. It's not if but when, and they are continuing to expand, and things need to be done and control and measures. And, in Texas, you can hunt them 365, 24/7 by any means. I think they've even waited now. You could be out of state and you could come as long as the landowner gives you permission. You could hunt without a license there. I mean, they're doing anything they can because they cause billions of dollars of damage, eradicate crops. I know totally, my family comes from farmland community. And they'll plant crops, and the next day, 100 hogs can come in and just uproot everything. And it's an issue. It really is economical, viable for families, and then also for your local species. So we do.
I met a gentleman who was a insurance appraiser for when damage happened down there in Texas. He said the number one thing that he deals with are hogs. Hogs just destroy crops. He does insurance on farm fields, and that's 80% of the work that he does is going down and inspecting the damage that pigs do. And they are delicious. You mentioned it earlier, but they are really tasty.
Well, and kind of just bringing it full circle, you mentioned Jesse Griffiths. Like the two books above me, the hog book, the turkey book, are two of the go-tos that I'm checking out, and obviously Perdinal Project, which you guys probably talked about there too. There's so many different recipes that you can find, and there's other chefs and wild game experts out there too. But if done right, man, I know some people. Oh man, you can't eat a hog that's over this, or if it's a male, it tastes bad. And it's like, no, it's really about how you prepare it. I brine all hogs using Jesse's a turkey brine recipe there. I mean, a hog brine recipe. He's got a turkey brine recipe too. But brining those animals, man, it really is a game changer. No pun intended. But it's
also a lot about care in the field, right? And a lot of people don't take care of their pigs.
Well, and I think a lot of people in general too. A lot of folks will just dump ice on their meat, right? And it's like, you want to keep it cold, but you don't want to keep it wet. There's different preparations that need to be done to ensure if you're going to spend all this time. You want to spend it with your family and friends, with some wonderful meals. Take care of it in the field. Do the things properly. Don't cut steps. If you've taken the time to go hunt, you can take the time to take a few extra minutes to do it right and set your thing up to where, you're not going to have wet meat, right? Because that is a killer. And I used to do it wrong all the time and wondered why, as a young hunter, did this not taste as good as when someone else gave it to me? Well, bad preparation in the field. So, same thing with hogs there too, man. In Texas, when it's 110 degrees out there in the shade and you're hunting, you shoot a hog, time is important, right? And so, we've sometimes, we can't get to every single one. If we trap a bunch, we'll take one or two, or, at least take the back straps. I don't like to waste meat, but there's sometimes too where, you're taking out hogs and you just need two number wise. If there's 100 of them running around the property on any given day, if you can take 5 of them out, great. But it's it's a dent, and that dent is buffered out by them any day because there's so many that are coming on. So, yeah, man, I love hunting those and eating them. It's a great dish. There's so many different ways to cook them. There's a lot of things you can kind of just swap out domestic pork for wild hog, and some people will not be able to tell the difference. It's delicious.
100%.
And you're doing something.
I do find it's a little bit darker in color, kind of reddish in color. I don't know if you feel the same way. You've probably shot way more than I have, but it is delicious. And my father-in-law, he lived down in Texas. He's passed away, but he was like, you can't eat those. You just don't. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you can eat them. I think they're just domestic pigs. And I got him eating it, and he completely changed his his tone, man. He was all in and wanted me to go shoot more.
Yeah, no, I got a buddy named Rob. He's like, I'll never eat a boar, and so had one about 2 seasons ago that showed up, probably about 220, 230 pounds. This thing was massive. Shot it, and I ended up cleaning that, and I set that aside, labeled the bags. I was like, specifically, I'm going to cook this, and Rob's going to eat it, and we're going to see what he has to say. And so I prepared it for him, and he's like, man, this is really good. I was like, is it? Are you sure? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that's on record. I was like, this is a picture of the hog that was this. It's like this big boar. He's like, really?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, the ones you said are inedible. He's like, yeah. And he's like, well, you just didn't prepare it right. You didn't brine it. You didn't do this. Like, and so that was kind of it was one of those times where he's like, oh, okay. And it's, you hear those things. You can't do this. You can't do that. And you can. You just got to try it. Now, there's a buck that I killed recently, and man, I tried to eat it. It was just very tough. It was an older buck, and his back straps were just nothing like the doe that I had, and kind of doing a side-by-side comparison and the skillet next to it. So, like, yes, so there can be age difference or preparation difference that can make definitely a taste change. So there is that element to it. So I can give that to people, but as far as hogs, man, I haven't found one that is disgusting yet. If it's riddled with ticks or something, maybe you might want to, be careful on that.
I found one that I didn't want to eat. And it's because it was such a tough critter, right? So we were cutting it up, and it had multiple sacks that were just filled with pus. It had been shot like 3 times, and we're like, we'll skip the meat on this one. Yeah. But that's crazy. So like we were cutting it up, and just like we just kept finding bullets in this hog. Just a crazy thing. I mean, whoever was shooting at it wasn't making great shots. But still impressive that the hog, like the wounds were all healed. Like there was no evidence pre-slicing him up that there was some issues. That's the hog that I was like, I don't want to eat that one.
It might have been one I shot. I shot one. It was like, I swear, it was probably 250 pounds. It was staring at me as 100 yards. Shot it square in the chest, and that thing just dropped. And I was like, okay, that's done. Hunt's done. It's kind of late. I was like, going to pack up, go pick everyone else up. Getting everything, and after you shoot, and I'm sure you do this too, right? You shoot, reload, and you're going to go ahead and stay on that animal, right? Because like you don't want that to get up, you don't want it to suffer. And that thing was down. There was not a single movement for like 3, 4, 5 minutes. So I was like, okay, that animal's dead. Go to pack up all my stuff. I look up, and the thing stood up, went like this, shook off, and just walked into the brush. Of course, by then I've unloaded my gun, so I'm not going to go in a stand with the one in the chamber.
Yeah.
And I'm like flipping out, man. I'm like, oh my gosh, and that thing was gone. Went over there, and there was like a drop of blood, maybe about $50 in the coin size, and that was it. I tracked it into the woods. I could not find another drop of blood, but
God,
that armored
crazy.
chest, it's so thick. You got to hit them right, so they can repel
What
bullets.
caliber were you using?
That was a 30-06. Nothing
No
small.
way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
then I went to go, I was like, all right, and headshots, right? And then, of course, there's, if you look at the anatomy of a head, there's like some areas you can hit that won't be vitals. So you just got to be mindful of your shot. But, the side is better. And instead of straight on, man, they got that protective, feels like an armor plate.
Yeah.
So,
you got to aim lower than you think, because they're not built like deer, right? They don't have these big lungs. They're trash compactors. So all their guts are bottom third of their body.
Yes. And that's the other thing, too, is like, a lot of hunters that I mentor, we look at skeletal structures. I want them to see whatever animal they're going to be hunting, right? You need to look at the skeletal structure, as far as like where the vitals are, and it can change from animal to another. So where you think on a deer, yeah, okay, that's where the heart is, lungs right here. This would be a good, shot.
Yep.
And, if it's even off, you're going to hit one of the vitals. But man, if you are changing over to whatever it is, nilgai or a hog or whatever, you got to study the anatomy of those animals. And do your due diligence, right? Because it's not just
For sure.
A lot of people just think, oh, hunters. Nah, man, I put a lot of care and time and studying into that, and I want people who are hunting on my property to do the same, so that they're well educated about what they're doing. Obviously, always taking people out to the sight in the rifles and make sure they can hit within a 3-inch bullseye accurately multiple times in a row before we let them off into the ranch. So that's something that I think that's due diligence that people in the outdoors
100%.
need to do.
Yeah, I actually love researching animals when I start hunting them, and I love when people are like, oh, you don't love the animals. I'm like, I do actually. Like antelope, for example, I love having like a bunch of interesting facts about the animal and how cool they are and how wonderful they are, and then people are like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that their closest genetic relative was the giraffe. I didn't know that they're the only animal with horns that fall off, but they're not technically antlers. Like I just love diving into the research of the animals. not only anatomy, but like just everything you can possibly get on them. I think it's important. So
Sure,
but
absolutely.
we've gone down a rabbit hole, George.
We have.
Let's we got about 15 more minutes. What other stories you got for us?
You know, I'd probably say that one of the things that I love doing is seeing new hunters come in.
Hmm.
And I've gotten to see a lot of people who will come in and they get an opportunity to hunt whatever it is, deer or hog, right? And so I think one of the things that I love is being able to go and see someone take their first deer, right? Or their first hog or whatever. And so I had the opportunity 2 years ago. One of my buddies, Johnny, we had gone and worked with him. He came out, and it's kind of like we call it like earn a doe, right? These guys will come out and work on the property. There's a guy named Doug Duran who works with me deer a lot. And he has a thing called sharing the land, where a lot of times he's setting up on, people have properties that they own and operate. They might need someone to come in and do some mowing, or maybe,
Yeah.
whatever it is, like, cutting up some areas so they can, plant, their fall crops or whatever it may be. And so they'll kind of do a trade-off, right? You can hunt here if you do this. Well, we don't have it as strict, but in the same token, like, that's a lot of folks. I want them to come into the ranch, get a good feel for what it takes to run a ranch, and then we get you up in the stand. And so a lot of times that's training those folks to, hunt, whether it's, getting shots at 100 yards, moving them out to the 200 yard, 300 yard. And so this guy, Johnny, comes out and he ends up taking, his first shot at 100, dead bullseye. And then I'm like, okay, do that again. And again, I'm like, okay, you're ready for a 200. Let's do this. And so all the talk and preparation about telling him what we need to do as far as when you're hunting, here is what, you're going to get an adrenaline dump, right? And here's what we want you to do. And when you're doing this, we want you to practice breathing. And so we had talked about it a lot. And I learned that some people are, they can hear that mentally. Some people have to go through the process, but it just clicked. And we felt like, okay, you're ready, right? And so we took him out, and that particular night, I'm in there with him and I'm filming. So I got my camera and I'm going to film his first, hunt. And he ends up seeing this doe come across. He's like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Man, yeah, it's kind of middle age, but it's it's about that 150 yard mark." And we'd been kind of training 100, 200, 300, but I was trying to get him something around 100. Just didn't know what was going to happen with that first nerve,
Yeah.
right? The first shot, the adrenaline kicking. And so we're trying to get something a little bit closer, but I was like, "What do you think about that?" When he's like, "Well, I don't know, man. We just got here. It feels like a little early in the hunt. Maybe we'll just wait for a little bit." I was like, "Okay, that's fine. It's that I think we might see something a little bit bigger, but it was a doe harvest we were looking for." And so, we were kind of waiting out there, and then of course nothing shows up for a long time. And I'm like, we might have missed that opportunity. And darn it, and start second guessing yourself like I
Yep.
do apparently. And then all of a sudden some doe come back out, and now they're at about the 160, 170 yard range, but he's feeling pretty confident. And, it's like, we finally was like, "Is that the one you want?" And he ends up saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna take this one." And right then he's like got the safety off, about to take a shot, and I'm like, "Wait!" And of course the fawn walks right in front of that doe, broadside, and so, okay, wait for that one to clear. So he's kind of got the nerves going on. You can almost hear his heartbeat through the camera. And so I'm sitting there videotaping him, and then the doe walks off. He's like, "You ready?" He takes a shot. You can see the deer kind of take the hit and then run off. And then all of a sudden you see hogs running off on another lane, and then more deer running off. It's just like, wait, what was going on? We only saw 3 deer, but now there's like, it's just
Oh, man.
craziness.
Yeah.
And so they're running everywhere. I'm trying to keep an eye on where this guy ran so that I can kind of make sure, like, okay, that's where I'm looking, and see if it comes back out. Tell him to reload, and then nothing. And so we have the benefit of looking at the video camera, right? So we go back there and we see, and I see the shot, and the way that it looked like the body took it, it looked like he hit it back and maybe in the guts. Like, so
Okay.
it's like, oh, okay, man, we need to go ahead and wait more than 30 minutes. Maybe we should give this an hour just in case. And, now he's kind of feeling bad. Maybe he didn't make the best shot. He said he felt like it was good. And, and I'm like, well, maybe it's the camera. It's hard to zoom in at 100, 75 yards. Maybe maybe I'm making a mistake. And so we're second guessing ourselves. And then all of a sudden I look up, and down another lane, we see 4 deer coming out, one of them being a melanistic doe, and it's a mature doe. And I was hoping to see one then. And I ended up deciding like I'm going to take that doe, and there's one that we were after in particular that year that would kind of part of our management stuff too. And so
Okay.
I get the video camera set up, and I grab my rifle and I get it, set up to take a shot. And then all of a sudden we hear a train. There's a train about 2 miles away from us. But when the train goes off,
Okay.
all the coyotes and all the dogs go off. So now it's like chaos again. But now we hear the coyotes really close to us. And so now these deer are freaking out, and they're like tensing up like they're about to leave. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like kind of one of those pressure situations. I don't want them to run off. So I ended up taking a shot and ended up getting the melanistic deer. It kind of runs off and then it lays down. And so it's like we can see it. We're like, okay, we got that deer down. It is, it's passed. And we know that there's still his, hopefully in the woods. And so we got it all on camera, right? And so our other buddy's like, what's happening over there? And I'm like, well, we got 2 deer down, we think. Got one of the melanistic. So we climb on out there and we take some pictures real quick with me with the melanistic deer. And because like light's fading and it's like, it was a good setup to have some photo shots. I can send you a picture of that too. But ended up doing that. And then we went over to look for my buddy's deer. Man, we're searching everywhere, not a single speck of blood. And I'm like, oh no, this is terrible. I feel so bad. He's feeling bad. We're doing like a grid pattern. And about 40 minutes later, I look over and I see something white and just kind of through some brush. I'm like, white belly? And I'm like, no, it's an old antler that had been sitting there. But right next to the antler is a white belly. And I'm like, there's his deer. Man, he shot that thing straight through the heart. It was a perfect shot. I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, I doubted you. I'm sorry. I doubted the video. So it's like one of those things, man, even when you think you know what's going on, even the video that tells you, oh, it was a perfect shot and it didn't bleed at all. It just happened to run back on there. So it was it was a wild time to be able to like have, my first melanistic doe. It's his first doe. We're both excited. If that video was more conclusive, if it had dropped down there, we would have gone immediately to that deer, and that melanistic doe would have never come into play. So it's like you can script a story however you want. You can think that something's going to go one way, but it never is an absolute thing in the woods, man. And it was like such a wild thing. And he ended up being later on in that season, my buddy Matthew Mitchell got his 2 melanistic doe. Johnny happened to be in the stand both times. So we realize now that if we want to take a melanistic doe, if we're going to get Jesse out there to get a doe,
bring Johnny,
we
man.
have to call Johnny too, because he is the melanistic man. So
that's amazing.
So he's got to see 3 of the 4 deer that had been taken in front of him have been melanistic. So I was like, that
crazy.
is a rare thing. Very rare. Yeah. I don't think he realizes how rare it is, but yeah.
That's super cool. And, it's kind of a hunter rite of passage, right? To like you shoot your first one and everyone goes, I don't know about that. I don't know. And then, so my first archery elk, shot it in the moment. We're like, yes, brilliant shot. We got the whole thing on video. We're like, let's let it rest for a little while. And we're watching this video. And so we watch it for, I don't know, an hour. And we're like, every time we watch it, we're like, maybe it's a little farther back. Maybe we should give him 2 hours. So we give him 2 hours. And it ends up, we find this bull just like right away. Not right away. It was a little nerve wracking. Obviously my heart was just in my guts. Like I was just like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. I wounded this beautiful bull elk. And we go looking, no blood, no nothing. We're like, oh no, exactly like your story. Fortunately, we found him, and we found him about 100 yards away, and he was upside down. So basically, I shot him. He ran out into the field and reared up and fell upside down. So he was dead probably in 30 seconds or less from my arrow. But we thought that like I had gut shot him, and we're gonna be spending the rest of the day just tracking this thing, and we didn't find a drop of blood. So it was super crazy. It's just funny how videos do that. I took that same video, posted it on a hunting forum on Facebook, just trying to like use it as like a attention grabber, and it just became this giant thing about like, gut shot, good luck finding that thing. And I'm like, found it 100 yards away, it died immediately. Like I know the video looks bad, but I don't know what to tell you. It immediately died. So it's just videos, man. They can be deceiving. They're great.
It could be. I thought that was going to be a tool in the toolbox for us to tell what happened, and then it ended up being the biggest deceptive thing. But it led to another opportunity. So it's one of those things too, man. It's like you just never know what's going to happen, right, in the woods.
100%.
And you've got to be prepared for anything. So keep your powder dry, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, George, man, this was a ton of fun. I wanna stay connected and get you back on here in the future. I have a limited window here, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, no.
Why don't you share the folks Yeah, why don't you share with the folks where they can find you, tell them about your podcast and whatever other ventures, and then we'll walk off into the sunset, brother.
Yeah, cool, man. So I'm most active probably on Instagram these days, and I'm at the son of a Blitch. There's a couple son of a Blitches out there, but I'm the son of a Blitch. And then I have a website, sonofablitch.com, which kind of is a place where you can kind of find all the different things I've done. I've run a publishing company with a guy from National Geographic. We traveled around the world, interviewed Indigenous elders, put together their life stories and messages. So we have that's kind of like a hub there. It's Have You Thought Publishing, haveyouthought.com. And then I make maps at mapmyranch.com and American Made Maps. We do maps for people in the hunting community, but then fishing, outdoors, whatever it is you need a map for, we can do it. You know, it can be vineyards, it can be anything. So we do really high-end aerial imagery, which kind of sets us apart. A lot of people do, you know, we partner with Onyx, and there's a bunch of other companies we've done work with in the digital world, but we do print maps. So that's something I've been doing for a couple decades now. Absolutely love it. With the Son of a Blitch podcast, you know, I'm 115 episodes now. I interview interesting people doing interesting things. That's tons of people in the outdoors, a lot of people in the meat eater community, a lot of wild game chefs. Jesse has been on 3 times before too. And then, you know, now I'm kind of moving in with the actors as well. Angel Studios reached out to me, so I'm interviewing a lot of their directors, producers, their actors, and then, you know, in the writing community, work with Simon and Schuster. So like Jack Carr is an author. I work with him. And then the Terminalist show, we recently had LaMonica Garrett on, one of the actors there too. So kind of expanding that too. I was a touring musician for about 10 years. So I worked with a lot of musicians out there. Had the recent drummer for Foo Fighters. He was with Nine Inch Nails when I interviewed him. A bunch of different other people that are kind of, so if there's something that you're looking for as far as the outdoors or the arts or whatever it may be, I've got a lot of really cool people that I've had the privilege and honor of sitting down with. And so I think there's a little something for everyone. It's very broad, but it's basically my interests, right? So,
Yeah,
you know, I try to bring in folks that have a cool story to tell, and I love being a storyteller myself. So yeah, kind of seamless in there. So that's the Son of a Blitch podcast, available wherever you listen to, and also on YouTube at Son of a Blitch. So yeah, those are the best ways to find me, man. And yeah, reach out if anybody has any questions, or you know somebody that you think needs to come on the podcast. Let me know, man.
All right, man. All right, George. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. We'll stay in touch, and we'll get you back on here again in the future. And all of the stuff that you just mentioned, I'll make sure to put links in the show notes, make it real easy for the listeners to check you out. I've been diving into your podcast. I haven't gotten through 115, but I've had a lot of fun. I've made it through like 5 to 10 so far, and it's a great show. So thank you.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Hey, thank you for having me on. Love your podcast, and man, it's a privilege to be on here, and really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Hunting Stories podcast. A huge thank you to George Blitch, of course, for coming on the podcast, sharing his incredible stories and his insights with us. We hope you enjoyed the podcast and the journey as much as we did. To learn more about George and his fascinating work, be sure to check out the show notes. There's links and details for everything that you need there. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast on whatever you're listening to, whatever platform. And your support helps us bring more amazing stories to your ears. So thank you so much, guys. I really do appreciate it. Until next time, happy hunting and storytelling. Now get out there and make some stories of your own.
Join us at a Friends of NRA event where freedom, fun, and firearms come together like nowhere else. With more than 600 events held across the country, there's always one happening near you. From exciting games to exclusive auctions featuring one-of-a-kind firearms and gear you won't find anywhere else. Whether you're a lifelong hunter, a competitive shooter, or simply passionate about defending freedom, there is a seat for you. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you and get ready for a night you won't forget.
Hey guys, this is Melissa Bachman. Are you ready to stop spooking deer before it's even time to hunt them? Then you need the new Flex S Dark cellular trail camera from SpyPoint. With a no-glow flash option, long-lasting solar power, and a ton of settings that can be changed anytime through the SpyPoint app, there are no more excuses for letting your deer get wise before the season even starts. So check it out for yourself and see why the SpyPoint Flex S Dark is the unstoppable and undetectable scouting tool you need for your next hunt.